morning to all of you. Thank you for your patience. I know it has been a little bit of a time juggle that has happened, so I would request everyone to just get back as quickly into their seats as possible. I know that everybody needs a break, so I'll do a quick introduction of Mr. Ravichandran Purushothaman. Ravi, as I call him, is a good friend. And I'll also set the context very quickly. I won't take too much of time because all of you must be keen to hear what Ravi is going to answer to some of the questions that I'm going to field him. And some of the questions are going to be, I'm going to stand on behalf of the finance communities present here and ask him as the CEO of the company what he feels. He has promised to be very candid. Mr. Ravichandran has been a very strong technical HR, environmental visionary leader for Danfoss and other industry-related organizations that he serves. I'm going to keep the introduction very short because otherwise this will take away half an hour. During his stint, because that is how rich Ravi's CV is. During his stint as regional director Danfoss, he took the business unit to great heights of excellence, and the group experienced very, very high growth rates. I remember talking to him even in pandemic, and he was one of the few guys who said, I said, how is life? And he said, it's rocking as far as the business is concerned. He is also a member of the global management team, board member and global mentor since 2013. He has been active in energy, water and food, agri, technology space, supporting, mentoring several early stage startups in India in various roles. He has been the past chairman of CII as well. He actually requested saying, keep the introduction short. Thank you very much, Ravi. I know you were traveling even last week and kindly accepted to take this session. See, I know that today there's a lot of challenges, and all of us know that in our organization as well. And CEOs are, driving growth. The HR has become a very important function. People management has become important. Cost has become very important. And the complexity of business is also coming from totally unrelated competition. Maybe not in your sector. I don't know. I want to hear that as well. But for example, if you take Leyland, somebody like Oppo is now manufacturing electric vehicles. So it is not anymore that, we have to only look at a Tata Motors or an Eicher or a Bharat Benz who are going to look at it. We don't really know who the competition is. And in this context, you have the CFO, and the CFO is like, they look to him or her for all the information, data, forecast, etc. And typically, CFOs are looked at as guys who apply the brakes. So it's like when everybody's gung-ho about a product introduction, the CFO may say, excuse me, but the margins are coming off a bit. Do you really need to invest this 500 crores? I don't see an IRR coming. So this is the yin and yang of the CFO, role. And sometimes, if I may use the term, he or she is actually paid to be a little unpopular. Now, in this context, Ravi, first, very quickly, what do you think are the priorities you have as a CEO? And then can we also discuss about how you regard the CFO's role?
Thank you, Gopal, and I think it's still good morning. Pleasure to be here. I think there's a lot that I can talk, but I will kind of keep it to the 45 minutes that we have agreed in this session. But I think before I get in, as a CEO, when I look at the theme of this conclave, it should be managing opportunities and sustaining growth instead of managing challenges and driving growth. This is one of the biggest changes I see when I look at the title. And this is how I would see things with my lenses, irrespective of how the environment is and how a CFO might look at it actually. So if I look at my role, I think there are kind of 5 priorities that I have. The first is the direction setting. Post-pandemic, many of the businesses are pivoting. I think you heard from Mr. Gopal, he talked about how his business is getting competition from unknown frontiers. So I think the role of a CEO is to align with the board first and set the direction of the company, the purpose of the company in its new world, that order that is prevailing right now. So direction setting is a very, very key priority, where to play, how to win. I think this is very, very important. And that kind of dovetails very well with the purpose of the company. Why do we exist as a company? That's very, very important for a CEO to articulate that. That's the most powerful story the CEO needs to articulate across the length and breadth of the organization. The second important D after direction setting is decoupling. Now I'll explain you what is decoupling. Decoupling is, we have been living in a world where we have a linear thinking. But the world is actually becoming a hockey stick or a double hockey stick. Some industries are growing faster, some industries are going down. Because of technology, disruptions are much faster than it used to happen. So what I mean by decoupling is that you need to shift the thinking in the leadership teams from what I call as linear thinking to exponential thinking. I think today exponential thinking is extremely important because the role of the CEO is to conceive exponentially how business can compound. It is a given some businesses are going to go down. It is a given that some businesses will have a hockey stick actually. But how do you actually live in the business, in the journey that you capitalize on it? So decoupling is a very important priority for me and my leadership team actually. The third important priority that I have is what I call as decluttering. The world today presents you with humongous opportunities for growth, but you need to sharpen where you really want to play and what are the key projects that you want to run in the organization. This is very, very important because you are going to have lesser resources to play with. When you look at even your balance sheet today, CapEx is not more the traditional CapEx. The digital piece is an important part of the CapEx as well. So the whole dimension and the divergence in the CapEx has changed dramatically. So you need to declutter, and decluttering is very important because the CEO needs to set the priorities on the projects you go after. This is so important because that's where you really need to clarify a lot in the organization, put the right priorities, and align the expectations actually. If you have 40,000 employees, all the 40,000 employees should know what are we going after. Not all projects, but you need to pick the ones that makes maximum sense for the given year actually. So that's decluttering is very, very important actually. Fourth one for me is demographics. I'm in an industry which is technology driven. And here we talk about producing components as a tier 1 supplier to my OEMs in this field of climate change and energy efficiency and electrification. And demographics is very important because I'm competing with a company like Google. Now Google buys a company called Nest and comes in and competes in a radiator thermostat business that we have existed for 80, 90 years. Now you talked about competition coming from different frontiers actually. Google does not have the knowledge on refrigeration and air conditioning, but they have humongous knowledge on digital capabilities. So demographics is where you need to leverage as a CEO because here you need young people in the organization who understands newer skills of technology, and you need to kind of allow them to coexist with senior colleagues. So diversity and inclusion is an extremely important element in the people aspect of the business. And this is a very important subject for me every day, every hour, and every minute. Because as a CEO, I spend a lot of time on mentoring people. I build people who build the business. I don't build the business. The last one is digital. I think digital is, it's a very widely used topic, but I think you really need to understand where you play in digital and how you play using digital actually. Because digital can put you off track and take away a lot of your resources as well. So I think what we have tried to do in digital is to make baby steps, build the internal capabilities, and then take the big steps actually. The fundamental thing that we have tried to do is to build focus on customers using digital. So what we have put a lot of impetus as my role is to really look at how do I enhance my ability of digital customer experience? How can I be a company that is easy to do business with for my customers? This is the fundamental focus we have put on digital actually. You can do a lot more things with digital, but they're not relevant for me actually. So these are my 5 high priorities, Gopal.
Thank you for that. So very quickly to sum up, it is direction setting, decoupling, decluttering, demographics, and digital. Wonderful. I've actually learned something today that your competition is also coming from Google, from totally unrelated sides of the world. I mean, amazing thing that technology has brought in, because I think one of the points that has come up is technology has replaced a lot of learning curve of businesses. So what happens is you are able to kind of quickly get onto it. There are benefits of integration both on the supply side and on the demand side, and suddenly somebody can start manufacturing something which was essentially being manufactured by hardcore manufacturing companies over the last 70 years. Incidentally, for people who may not know too much about Danfoss, I thought I should very quickly say they are into power solutions, they are into electric converters, electronic controls, motors, pumps, software, and steering and valves. So it's a very complex suite of products that we have. And today I'm going to take you on that. I know this is not a CFO question technically, but I'll come to the CFO question just immediately after that, because digital is something that kind of intrigues me. Can you share with the audience as to how you and your team drive digital? I mean, do you go to one of the big 4, big 6, companies, I don't want to name them, who offer anything from cloud to stack to, AI, etc.? Or do you go to, the second alternative is actually go to boutique companies and then have them to prepare, solutions on your supply chain side. You can have something on the distribution side. You can have something on the manufacturing side. Third alternative, or maybe you do all three, is actually to do the digital development from your in-house team itself or look at your parents.
So there are 3 different initiatives we have around digital. Fundamentally, you spoke about the 3 businesses that we are, and the first business is about 5 billion euros, the second business is about 3 billion, and the other one is about 2 billion, and more or less the same structure exists in India actually. The fundamental thing is we have an enterprise-wide network, which is a platform which is called the SAP HANA, which most of you know, where PLM becomes a very important platform in this. So this is an area where we have started with an external Big 4, but we have actually, after a couple of months, we have completely insourced it, because nobody knows the business better than your own people actually. So our philosophy has been a lot more driven from in rather than driven from out actually. Second is, when it comes to products, as many of you know, that today software is eating into hardware. In most of our products, a lot of software content is going into our products actually. And here, the core businesses need to be fueled with digital, like IoT solutions and all of it. Here we took a very different route on acquisitions. Like for example, for tractors as an example, we had a company we acquired in Pune, which is into driverless technologies. A bunch of young, 25, 30 young, bright guys who came in and completely disrupted the entire paradigm of digital. So you as a company need to be open to acquisitions actually and build these companies, because cultural fusion is also very important, because culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you need to make sure how do you build that whole thing, in a very fusion-less manner, or a manner that you kind of bring the whole thing together and it flows and creates a lot more value. I think the third level that we do is more on the customer side actually. We have all kinds of business model. We supply to a supply chain, we supply to an OEM, we supply to a channel, we supply projects, we supply services, we supply digital services. So we need to look at, and one size in digital does not fit all actually. Yeah. So you really need to pick your battles where you want to play first and build the capabilities actually. And here we've done it all internal. And here what we have tried to do is to rotate people within, because you take the domain expert guy, build them along with the guys whom you hired from the Accentures or the other kind of technology-driven companies. So they really work together and create these results actually.
Sorry to interrupt you, but all of this finally integrates with your SAP HANA.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
So I think the customer-facing side is very important, because why do you exist as a company? Because you want to make sure that you do something great for your customers actually. So customer-centric solutions, is very important from a digital point of view. As I mentioned earlier, that you need to make things easy for your customers.
Thanks for that. And I think that was a very deep statement that you made, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I think that's very important, because finally, while we do digital and we do a lot of automation and we deploy a lot of artificial intelligence and blockchains and all that, finally the people matters, which was one of your fine Ds. See, you talked about acquisition, you talked about digital, etc. All of this means a little bit of risk taking, and typically when CFOs enter, and now I'm getting into the finance part of the discussion, which was the topic, what do you expect your CFO to do at that point in time? Because what happens is, typically when I get into a room which has got business guys, there's a CEO or a chief operating officer, and then I get in, and my mindset is to take risk. So sometimes they say you are on the wrong job, but still I'm able to retain it. The point is, do you expect your CFO to highlight the risks, or do you want your CFO to say, no, be a business enabler, but at the same time, try to be like what shall I say, good buffet of highlighting risks as well as being a business enabler?
So the single biggest qualification for a CFO is he needs to be both independent and interdependent. So he needs to know when to use the independent card and when to use the interdependent card, actually. I think managing risks is a joint responsibility, is not just a CFO responsibility, but flagging risks is, of course, CFO's responsibility. So I think, the role of a CFO is also changing, in my view, at least in my company. Finance as a function is today becoming a boundaryless organization, And in my world of where I'm sitting, providing business insights is very critical for a CEO to see a CFO as an enabler for the business, actually. Which means you need to articulate and make to life the strategy, So you need to understand the story of the business. You need to understand the customers who are really making the difference for us. You need to be very closely connected to the customers. Understand what are the variables the customers are going to get hit. So understanding the business is a very important integral part of a CFO, actually. And again, given digital, the businesses are, pivoting. Hardware is becoming software. CapEx is becoming OpEx. So you also need to know, with all of these shifts that are happening in the business, how can you play that advisory role to the business, actually?
Thank you for that. And to be fair to Ravi, I'm not asking planned questions. I had given him about 11 questions, but I'm asking totally different questions. Thanks for that, to make the whole thing more livelier. See, I'm going to ask a very difficult one here, which I have not, and I want to have a frank opinion from you. See, I keep telling this to my team, and I tell this from the finance angle. So I have headed strategy. I have now handling possibly digital along with my CIO, and of course I'm CFO and investor relations and all that, which all looks the senior side. I said there's a difference, and no offense meant to engineers or anybody of that sort, but I tell my guys one thing: the finance function is such that, say, suppose the cashier loses 5,000 rupees in the till. The first time, it will be forgiven or noted. The second time it happens, it may be reprimanded. The third time, the cash will be there in the cash box, but a new cashier will be brought in. It's very binary. It's a very binary kind of a thing. So, on the other side, and this happens, this is acceptable. I'm not saying there is any divergence in this. If you take manufacturing, what happens is, and if there is a huge warranty, let's assume that warranty, manufacturing or design or sourcing or confluence of all three coming in, and then there is a warranty of 7-8 crores. The organization kind of drives to ensure that this kind of is fixed, and there'll be another event that happens. So we have on one side a function which has to actually keep looking over its shoulder continuously. And I'm talking about the people at the middle and the lower middle management, because people are extremely cagey. They don't want to, not cagey, they are very safe. They don't want to have a failure. Like, for example, if a tax guy makes a mistake, he gives the wrong tax rate, for instance, right? Then what happens is, immediately they said, okay, man, you botched it up big time. You are going to be, there's going to be a consequence for this, right? How do you view this in organizations? Is that one of the reasons why we see a little bit of carefulness, over control, mind space that happens in finance folks? do you really believe that organizations, while governance is important and all that, do you think that a certain amount of leeway should be given to finance people? I know it's a very controversial question, and I had not shared it with you, but knowing the good friend you are, I thought I'll ask this.
No, I think, I don't kind of encounter this in kind of the narrative that you gave, at least in my organization. Possibly because, we are highly automated in terms of, the entire cash transactions end to end, with all the 3 towers fully digitalized, the P2P, R2R and C2C. So there's very little individual intervention. It's a system-driven, setup. So I don't really see that. But I think more importantly, what you're trying to say is, I think an empowerment needs to be earned. Nobody's going to come and give you empowerment because you are from the finance community, actually. Right. And you will earn empowerment if somebody sees value in you. And how can you become a value aggregator for someone as a business, in a business partnering role? You can become a value, as I mentioned, you can become an advisor, or somebody is adding extraordinary value if you're able to articulate the story of the business and help your CEO or your managers come with new dimensions which they don't see, and they're not used to seeing because of their domain expertise being different, actually. So as long as you build value from different dimensions of the business, I don't see anyone really looks at you as, someone who is an alien in the organization. You will command respect, right? Like when I go to my town hall for my quarterly results, even though I may pick a few more information from my board meeting, I ask my CEO to start the session, my CFO to start the session, actually. Because that is a way, if you can give him empowerment to tell the story much more powerfully, you also empower him in front of the entire organization, actually.
That's true. That's true.
So, and the role of a CEO is also, very closely symbiotic with the CFO. Because in the historical structures that we all worked a couple of years back, you had a CEO, you had a CFO, and then you had a CFO and a COO. Now today you don't find COO in the organizations. The reason for that is, a lot of things that what a COO was doing in a digital world is integrated into CFO. And if the CFOs don't understand this, then you really have time for them to look at different things, right? So we are living in a very agile world, right? And in an agile world, you can't have too many layers in terms of the top leadership as well. And digital is cutting across different dimensions of the organization. So I think finance is a very key enabler for our business. And the business partnering advisory role is so critical, actually. And as long as finance continues to give inputs for decision making, you will see a lot more value being created in the partnership. And I truly believe a good CEO, CFO symbiotic relationship is extremely good for long-term value creation.
Thank you for that. And I think, let me recap your observation of the previous question that I had. You did mention 2 things about, our expectation of a CFO or finance function was, one, you said that today organizations don't have independent functions, but they have interdependent functions. And the second one you had mentioned was that finance is very clearly, at least for you, is that they should not, managing risks in the organization as part of the entire leadership team, but certainly flagging risks becomes something that finance has to do it, and well in advance. And I can't more agree than you, because I think organizations today, I think one of the perspectives that, we keep discussing in finance or even in the organization is, it's like driving a car, 99% of the time you have to do windshield driving. And 1% of the time you do rear view mirror whenever you need to look at it. Otherwise, you can't change the ratios significantly and say, no, this is what we will do. Because performance reporting itself, to be candid, in my opinion, and I'll take your views on that at a later point in time because we are doing reasonably well for time, is performance reporting per se is becoming like dead, because it's historical and it's more of forecasting that has come in. And predominantly, like you rightly said, finance has become, it's kind of very well interconnected within organizations today. So earlier when we had managing directors and controllers, so to speak, all the information on finance, performance, profitability, margins, ratios were all only with one particular person or in finance. In fact, just to kind of share in Leyland, what we have done is we are sharing P&Ls with business heads, sub-business heads, so that at least at the certain level of margins, they get to know to manage the business and they don't really have to wait for information to flow back to them. But having said this, one of the things that we're seeing, and I've just come out of a couple of conferences myself, and one theme that came out, and which is possibly where finance also plays an important role, is strategic planning. And I thought we'll get your views on that. Because long-term planning, people seem to be now realizing that is not really helpful, given the sudden disruptive changes. It's not just the risk. There's a massive change that is happening in the world. So what are your views? How does your organization do long-term planning?
So in very simple terms, the 5-year strategic perspective is all out of the window. Right now we only look at an 18 months plan, a 6-quarter rolling plan. At the same time, there would have been an aspirational target set every 3 years by the CEO. That's what we go after, actually. If the month ends on the 30th, today you get a BW dashboard at 9:30 in the morning, which has the entire P&L of the last month. This was not the case 10 years back. Yep. Whenever I get my external auditors, 10 years back, they used to come and sit down and do an internal audit for 1 month. Today, I don't see why we need auditors to be in the company more than, in my view, 8 hours, even though they are here for a week. But there are other reasons why they are there. But the key thing for me is we need to really look at being more agile in a world we are living. If we are not more agile, somebody else will be more agile. So that's really the world we live.
Can you share a little bit more on the long-term planning itself? I mean, when you say it's 18 months, it's interesting. Yeah, we have reduced to about 3 years.
So long-term planning is, I think from a business point of view, what we are seeing world over is winner takes it all. That's the paradigm we live. If it's the advertising industry, it is Metaverse and Google who have 60% market share. So the aspirational target for a CEO should be how quickly I can get to a 45 or a 60% market share in my core businesses. Whether it is possible in 25 or 2030 actually. Right. So that should be an outlier for you to really go after actually. Of course, the journey can be in 2 steps and 3 steps. You can double in 3 years and 2 times you double, you're there. You can't predict a lot of things that happens around you in the marketplace as well.
That's true.
Because the business models are changing. Therefore, why worry about something which is too much far away from you? But how can you compound your growth in the 18 months period is what you should put focus on.
So when you do, for example, I'm sure, when you're doing the revenue plans for about 18 months or so, what about your CapEx plans? Because if you have a significant clunk of CapEx coming in, that would possibly last you for the next 5 years, 6 years. So do you have 2 paths in which this happens?
So we don't plan anything where the ROI is less than 3 years.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have a strong CapEx proposal where the ROI is less than 3 years, we don't look after that. I mean, there's no point in going something. When your whole world is moving so fast, you can't have an ROI beyond 3 years. But if there is something core you want to invest for long term, you invest long term on the core. But then you go with partnering on outsourcing model actually in some areas.
Okay, I mean here for Leyland, just to share a perspective, because our asset turns are very low. This is a highly capex intensive business. So the asset turns are about 4 times if you're lucky, 4.5 times. You can't get beyond that. So the returns are very, they are spread over this. And this is one of the things that we are looking at while we are managing it astutely. We are very, very careful about our capex investment. At the same time, new products to be launched will be a sudden slug of capital coming in. So if you put in a sudden slug of capital, you have to be extremely careful that it returns over maybe 5-6 years. We would love to be in your business and get it over in 3 years.
No, but I think I need to clarify here. We did a cleanup in 10 years back we used to make everything in-house, you know. We used to even operate our own canteens. We used to have our own drivers, actually.
I can imagine.
So we need a cleanup, actually. We decided, okay, what is the core to our business, which we will keep it in, and what is that we will outsource, actually. You know, when you are able to flex this piece, what we call as our core and clear strategy, we were able to get the engine room in order. Otherwise, we are putting money on so many things which is not core to the business, actually. Yeah. And in most of the entire world, we don't own any office location. We only lease office locations. Factories are only owned by us, or leased for a longer period of time, actually. So you need to look at where to put your capital.
Focus
on
the core.
Use that capital more wisely, actually. And if you don't have a strong ROI story in what you want to do, then don't do it. Because you're not going to make money. The world is changing so rapidly. But you start fueling your core. You become the world leader in your core business with obnoxiously high market share. Then you really create a big distance there, actually. Many a times, what I have seen with companies is they are not very clear what their core is. They tend to play everywhere. And that's the role of a CEO, to decide where to play and how to win. Because the world is full of opportunities. But managing that opportunities is a symbiotic relationship with the board and the CEO.
Coming to a shifting...
I hope I've not created a lot of clouds in your thought.
No, you haven't. I'm just kind of... See, I'm also trying to navigate this whole thing to, you know, your question so that we make it a little, you know, pertinent. See, one of the points that comes up is, maybe it is not applicable to you, but you can answer because you're not listed. One of the challenges we face is, as finance professionals, is, you know, the increasing level of governance that has come in. And I'm not complaining. That's how it is. So if you look at it, you know, you have, for a typical listed company, big, small, okay, you have, and let us look at the governance piece all through. You have the stock exchanges, then you have the Institute of Chartered Accountants, then you have NAFRA, which is for fraud regulation, then you have SEBI, which is there, and then there are a couple of, and then you have, you know, Reserve Bank of India. Everybody does their audit, everybody has their questions, rightfully so or wrongfully so. I'm not getting into the merits or demerits of this. That's how the governance system is, because the entire system is set to supervise organizations to ensure that everything is fine. Now, like you said, in your organization, since everything is completely IT enabled, and maybe most organizations are getting into that, but what happens is newer and newer laws are coming in where, you know, organizations have to grapple with complying new regulations, right? So, for example, the latest regulation that has come in for listed is, which was earlier there, but which was not really implemented, is unpublicized price-sensitive information. Now, the expectation is that, you know, you have to stamp everything, your P&L as confidential, and then you'll have to see that it is restricted, and then the person who does. So there's a lot of cost to governance that is coming in, and taxes themselves, while GST has come in, it has been a big push, positive. There are areas where, you know, GST, if your vendor does not pay the GST, then what happens is the customer needs to pay for it, and there's a lot of irritation that happens on this. And then you have the audit committee, right, on top of it, which will actually look at, okay, now tell me the compliance list, give me the punch list, and, you know, people have to go and respond to them. What happens is all of this, the organizations tend to look at the finance community to drive all of this. Do you think a time will come when it is actually said that no, you know, all these laws and their compliances, just like environment pollution or manufacturing laws, Factories Act, blah, 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 that should get integrated into an organization, that the organization as a whole lives and breathes compliance? Sorry, it is a long question, but...
I think as long as you get transparency, it's always good, right? I mean, but again, even for example, let me come back to the other question about being listed and non-listed. You know, when we have to make an acquisition, we also need to go out and look for funds, right? So there is a valuation that is there done by a third party or a bank, of sort of a bank actually. So it's not that we are not following what a listed company follows actually.
Fair enough.
So there are nuances for funding, and the cost of capital may vary based on what kind of funds and the size of funds you want actually. So I think it applies for both listed and non-listed companies actually. The second thing is, when it comes to the cost of doing business, I think you also need to be transparent in everything we do, which is difficult because given the way that your digital ecosystem is in play. But it's evolution, right? I mean, as long as you put a lot more digital into it. I'll give you a very different example. How many of us in this room have water on your balance sheet?
ESG, that's right.
You don't have water on your balance sheet. I have water on my balance sheet. And I have a 50-acre campus, and I would like to know what is my water consumption, right? And I called a startup, which is, of course, today a well-funded startup, which is VGOT. They came to me 5 years back, and they have set up and, they installed 500 odd sensors in my company, and I'm now measuring water. I've reduced my water consumption from 105 kiloliters to 35 kiloliters.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it is not done on a capex model. It is done on an opex model. These 3 young boys in VGOT, they came to me, and they gave me this proposal. And one of them, known to me, says, "Uncle, you give me 40 lakhs, we will get this done." I said, "I don't have 1 rupee. Can you do it an alternate model? You save, we share." We went for that model. 5 years back. Today they've completely disrupted my water footprint. So every time you have a problem, look for more opportunities to solve them, right? And digital is extraordinarily a powerful technology, and it becomes a resource liberating force for your balance sheet. And how many of you really use the technology actually? You can do humongous things in bringing transparency.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Energy. We have been running the campus 6 months without even drawing 1 kilowatt hour from TNEB. They are very unhappy with us. Because I have to pay a higher price actually. But still, from a balance sheet point of view, it makes absolute sense. So
I would agree with that, Ravi, because even on the finance side for the fraternity, I just wanted to share, there are a whole bunch of, and see, we tend to think that startups are, some screwdriver technology or something that they are just coming in with, and that they are not dependable and we have to only go for the traditional big boys, so to speak. I don't think it's required anymore. I think that kind of an evaluation needs to be done if you're doing something which is super critical for the company, and the whole foundation of the company can shake if anything goes wrong. Or there is super critical information, confidential information which has to be shared. But otherwise, my dear friends, let me tell you, on working capital management, there are lots of companies today who are doing a lot of work on working capital management, tax, GST management. I have not heard so much about income tax, but GST is another whole bunch of companies who say that they will do it on an OPEX model. Third one is fixed expenses. There are guys who are only wanting to do fixed expenses. There are treasury arbitrage management who is there. Yesterday I was speaking to someone, he said, "I will take care of your travel." The entire travel management, and there is no cost to us. Yeah. They're saying that give us the plugs and we will take care of it, including settlement, accounting, vouchers, etc. Initially I said, no, let's look at it later. But like you rightly said, some organization like VGOT, which maybe, at least I haven't heard about it, but can bring in tremendous value. See, one of the points, and I don't want to be patronizing here because I am on the level as each of you guys here, at least from the finance side, is that, I think we also need to look at various opportunities that are there right in our backyard, where we can take a lot of effort from this. Coming back but to the session, you see, one more question that I had, and then I'm going to throw the floor open. Please do ask some questions because you don't get guys like Ravi to talk to every day. At least I don't get. I meet him only on these podiums. So I have been very selfish in asking all the questions I wanted to. Many companies have IT being under the CFO. Typically, I'm not saying it's good or bad. How does it work in Danfoss? What are your views on this?
So for us, IT is a separate function, but under the CFO. You can never keep IT out of the CFO.
Okay.
That's our simple formula.
And gentlemen and ladies, IT is not income tax, it is information technology. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Like you go to the CFO for CapEx requirements, IT is another CapEx, right? It's another investment you need to make. So I think information technology, digital, I think I mentioned already that, digital is an integral part of the business today. It's really the one that glues the company. It glues the entire value chain, actually. So if this is not under CFO, then we are really in trouble.
Okay.
This is where all the risks emanate. And that's where I think you really need. Cyber security is a big topic in our company, actually. I don't want to mention one of our big suppliers. They were hit by cyber security in August in Germany. We were out of supplies for 3 months. Very crucial raw material. And they have an interface to our company in terms of the ordering. So, since it was under the CFO, he took a lightning action. We've completely helped the customer to rebuild the entire system in 12 days. And in 3 months, we are back to normalcy in that kind of company, actually. Because your supplier is as good as your extended arm, right? I mean, so you need to also keep this agile approach in problem solving. And remember, we are living in an exponential world. We are not living in a linear world where we can go like the government of India and talk about, I want to grow at 7%, 8%. That's not going to help us anymore. If we want to make transformational change, we need to grow compound. We need to compound our growth rates, actually. And you can only do it in a shorter period of time. I think I was talking to you about how China did it in climate change, actually. It became a big pollution challenge in China, the Beijing city. In 18 months, they cleaned up the city. They switched off. They had a plan A, plan B, plan C. In 18 months, the air quality changed in Beijing. That's the world we live in. And that requires a different DNA to play, even in business.
Very, very true, because organizations are having, much shorter delivery cycles today. The plans cannot be long-term. It cannot be, and the world is, let's be honest, the world is getting very, very impatient, the way it is happening. And it is no longer at, there is nothing called as speed versus quality. Speed and quality have to be delivering. Manufacturing is no longer a premium, in my opinion. It is given. Even if you buy the simplest of phones, whether it is a 10,000 rupee phone or whether it's a 100,000 rupee Apple, the expectation is that the quality that is proposed is delivered. And this becomes a very important function even for us, and in terms of the throughput of transactions that we do. Now, having said that, I hope there are some questions.
Just one comment there, actually. In every company, there is something called an engine room. And the engine room for us is safety, quality, cost, delivery, productivity. Whatever happens outside, you cannot compromise on these targets.
Especially safety.
And the role of CFO is to make sure that we consistently benchmark on these parameters and be the best in the world. Benchmarking is another important activity where a CFO has to become a very strong business partner to a CEO.
I think that's a very important point, and outside-in view is something that's very important.
Engine room, you cannot compromise, because engine room is where you generate your bottom line, your cash flows, and your top line. You simply have to keep the engine room on. We may be flying an engine when, whatever the engine is, but you cannot compromise on the engine room. Safety, quality, delivery, cost, productivity. If you have all these 5 in order, your organization is agile. Because your cash is getting generated, and if you can bring new ideas with 3 years of ROI, you can fuel the engine again and again and again. Because, remember, we are trying to fix an engine when the plane is flying. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's really what this is all about. There's no rocket science here, actually. So
any question? Hopefully there are some questions. Yeah, somebody has raised. Can you please identify yourself and then? Guys, please do ask some questions to make this session livelier.
Gopal, my name is Raghotaman. Of course, we both know each other, right? Now, I'm just going to only touch upon 2 points, which was the discussion between the CEO and the CFO. I just want to give a perspective as a board member. I've also been chairman of audit committee and various things in various companies. Now, first point is, we talked about the complementary role of the CEO and CFO. But to me, I mean, what I'm saying may be legacy historic, but if you really look at the PSUs and the government structure, there is a financial advisor and controller. And any decision which is pushed by the CEO or the MD to the board has to have the concurrence of the CFO and the administrator. It was not done without any reason. There are some reason. Of course, you know, the public sector, the thing, and even the government. That is why there is in government always it says with the concurrence of the finance department at the end of anything which is done. But I think what I thought I should share with you is that while it is really important that the CEO and CFO have worked together, compatibility and what you're talking about, the CFO has a slightly a different view that he has to, where he finds a reason why he should not concur totally with the CEO. He should take the courage to discuss it one-on-one and try to convince.
Absolutely.
That is when the healthy growth of the corporate, and also this is part of the governance, which you talked about.
That's right.
The second is, you talked about the draconian, this thing on the compliance and regulatory.
I didn't say draconian. I said
Okay, I'm using the word draconian because I said, because I'm an independent director, any damn thing which happens in the compliance shortfall, I am subject to so many things, including a jail. Okay, depending on the seriousness of the issue. Now, two things which, at least I have followed that as a director sitting on the board for 4 decades, not 1 year, 2 years, 4 decades. So what we used to do is, we used to tell the company, the compliance officer, every time there is a change in the statute or in the regulatory thing, they will make a presentation to the board and the audit committee. And simultaneously, they will also run a program for all the first and second level executives in the company. That means the point which you made about, it is not just the CFO's job. It is not just the job of the company secretary, but it is the job of the people down below who are supposed to deliver that, enable the compliances. There's no point in talking in the boardroom and then going away.
That's true.
I think, and third one is, of course, even I'm sure that you must have implemented. Of course, one of the systems in one of the companies we had a kind of a software which tracks all the compliances digitally. So it throws up any shortfall anywhere, and it also points the person who was responsible, who has just not done it. So these are the ways in which you can model. Of course, you cannot wish away the regulatory. And let's also understand all the so-called regulatory things, and including the Ministry of Corporate Affairs coming up with so many things, is only because they found that there are some shortfall. But then they can't make a point to one company, they make it across globally. Thank you.
Thank you. I think these are very valid points, for the people assembled here. Thank you, Mr. Raghotman. Yeah. Yeah, I think somebody in this table and then possibly. Keshav. Yeah, Keshav was asking a question.
Yeah,
Can a mic be handed over to him?
I have a mic.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Sorry, he had the mic. Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Gopal and Mr. Ravi. Just one question, maybe a little. I'm Keshav from Taylor Abba, also CII, Tamil Nadu State Council. Just maybe a slightly off the wall kind of question. At least in most companies, or maybe smaller companies, especially the finance department, the CFO, it's more of a cost center for the company, and it's more internal focused. Would you, maybe as a CFO, maybe you would also be happy about it, but do you think the finance department can ever become at least a revenue center in the sense that potential strategic opportunities, which they might know more of, let's say it's market related, even though you said it's not, maybe not be your core activity, but potential opportunities when it comes to startups or related fields, do you think the finance department, CFOs can take more responsibility or should be given more responsibility or opportunity in those kind of things?
I think so. Is the question to me?
Yeah, both. Because
Okay.
you get two different perspectives, I think.
I will take it so that then after that, the CEO part of it can answer. I think they should be. You see, the point is like this. If you look at, I know these are large organizations, but if you take, for example, IBM, I know the IBM CFO well. They are given a P&L responsibility, which means that they have to, and I have met the IBM CFO when I needed to, and he was part of a solution for, a part of a solution that was provided for, say, an operational lease of IT assets, one part. So I think finance people are capable, would want to be part of solutions where they can actually see the top line or the bottom line improving. This is one part. I strongly endorse what you're saying. The second one is, I would say that there are other ways also where you can actually start revenue enhancement. That is by a whole bunch of analytics and giving information as to which are the levers which can help. Like, for example, if you take product cost or if you take revenue mapping that happens, right? I do find that despite all the information that is available, the front-end people are actually completely immersed, and rightfully so, with customers, competition, what is happening there, how do you get the next customer acquisition, etc., and products reaching on time, logistics issues, etc. So here is a guy or a lady who is there who can actually say, you know, actually your opportunities here in these buckets where we can do. Or even when you look at sourcing, right, where the sourcing guys do have it, and like Ravi mentioned, today organizations are completely digital, the information is available. But possibly this function has the ability to pause, reflect, conclude, collaborate, and communicate, which is today not possible with all the other functions, because all of them are having full day jobs in tackling their challenges. The fourth thing I would say is that, yes, you see, I'm not a endorser of cost cutting, so to speak. You know, cost cutting, I think it's not, but you can do a lot of cost optimization, right? You ensure that every rupee that the organization spends either chases customer acquisition, chases cost in manufacturing, chases quality, or chases any competence of the company that will help us to win in the market. There again, I feel that there is a kind of an invisible earning that organizations can get. Treasury is a very clear earning potential. Your borrowing costs, the money that you deploy, how effectively you deploy it, becomes like, you know, I personally, while I look at EBITDA, I don't believe in EBITDA. Because depreciation is, I'm taking a slightly longish answer. Depreciation, in my opinion, I know I will be failed by the Institute of Chartered Accountants, but I believe is a slow cash cost. It's not a non-cash cost. The moment I drive a vehicle outside, it has depreciated 20%. If I want to acquire the vehicle, if I want to sell the vehicle, I have lost 20% in cash. If I sell the vehicle after 5 years, I have lost 80% in cash. It's no longer, so it is a slow cash cost. So people use EBITDA. Interest is something that you need to pay. It is real, it has to be paid. So saying that I will look at EBITDA is like saying that I will look at 98.6%, you know, my temperature is 98.6, so I am healthy. Means nothing. So here again, see, the whole trick about the CFO, the CEO, or the finance community is ensuring that they have a wealth of information. Working capital management straight away saves interest. It improves the company's ROC, right? Straight away you can contribute there. Similarly, interest spread. Similarly, if you look at in financial evaluation, so there are direct tax benefit, tax planning again, you know, is very, very crucial today, whether it is GST. You cannot afford to make a mistake in GST. It's a multiplier loss. If you get the wrong rate, if you're not planned your network properly, it can result in huge costs. So there are both financial, I will say, enhancement, revenue enhancement that finance can be given, and there are also invisible savings that organizations can get, which will visibly trickle down in the bottom line. Over to you, Ravi.
No, I think it's a great question because, you know, when I look at my own organization, I have my channel partners who are the size of an MSME. You know, they're 100 crores, 50 crores. And many a times, and also my suppliers, right? My suppliers are also of that size. I think one of the things that we have tried to do is to mentor them on how to actually leverage value creation in the entire value chain. Because what gets measured is what gets done. And if you want to measure your finance department or function by X or Y variable, then that gets done actually. Like he spoke about different metrics. If you're measuring your finance on how much value they create in reducing borrowings, reducing inventory, asset cycle, asset to cash cycle, how much is they are driving the loss on bad debts if they are sitting on the books. So these are things which, you're measuring them, then the whole paradigm of their thinking also changes actually. So it's about mindset. You're dealing with people, Keshav. They are just people. So you need to make them think in the way it adds value to your business. That would be my simple answer actually. In terms of mentoring, what we try and do is, because when you go to these small, I have a guy who does painting for a paint shop he runs in Varagadam area. I always get fascinated about this guy. He paints for the Jaguars of the world, for the Harley Davidson of the world, and all kinds of big brands are there actually. And first time I visited him, I found the shop floor was not as clean as what I wanted to see it.
Oh.
But I sat down with him and spent 2 hours explaining to him what does cleanliness means. What does it bring to you in terms of value, hygiene factors? He transformed. He transformed. Because small companies, morning he is a CEO, at 11 o'clock he is a purchase manager, at 2 p.m. he's a customer agent, and at 4 p.m. he's chasing income tax and all of that stuff actually. So you can't blame them. But if you can help them, if you can bring a lot of new ideas into their head, these young entrepreneurs, they are capable of making tectonic change to their businesses actually. But again, I said this, you have multiple variables in business, You need to manage your opportunities, not your challenges.
No, absolutely correct. And just to finish off, again, good question is, and this is also reflective of all, because sometimes, finance people, including some senior people, they feel, no, this is this is a commercial call. This is a customer call. I said, this is nothing called as a commercial call or a customer call. Yeah, this is a call. If it was your business, would you do it? Is the question. One point I wanted to leave with the community and here is no turnaround. I'm telling about a massive turnaround in a company has happened without a finance team being involved. That would have been of course, the CEO plays a very important role, and the operations team plays an important role. But there you will actually see that the role of finance gets really enhanced. What we will have to do, to your question, is in times of growth, again, finance's presence should be seen. Like you're saying, revenue enhancement measures. Thank you for that question. We'll have one more. Sorry,
just one addition, actually. Yeah. This is where I also spoke about culture. One of the things we really cherish in the company is, ours is a family-owned company. And the founder had his DNA. And one of the behaviors that he installed when he was a small company was run like your own business. So he clarified what does it mean for every individual, whether he's in frontline sales or whether he's in the factory or whether he's a finance guy, doesn't matter. Take ownership, bias for action. It doesn't matter who they are. You earn the empowerment, you earn that trust actually. So the organization culture also plays a very important role actually, and that's why I said culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have great strategies, but bad culture will not take you where you want to go.
Very well put. One last question, because I thought, this session would end before, but it's been going on. Thank you.
Hi.
I think he had a chance, and maybe this is the last, after that, the last one. Okay. Oh, there's one more. Okay, fine. Okay.
Vedaraman from Chennai, Chartered Accountant.
Okay.
Vedaraman, Chartered Accountant. Yeah. There is a common perspective that for the finance professional, the top position will be like CFO most of the cases. Like while having a conversation with a lot of business leaders or business CEOs, there is a more opportunity for CFOs to emerge as CEO to drive the business. So what's your view on that?
You are asking.
My personal view is, never hire a HR person from outside. The best HR person is your CFO.
So he says, what he is saying is CFOs cannot be CEOs. No, I was joking. But let me just give you please don't take me too seriously on my side comments, because otherwise the session won't be lively. But the point is 20 to 25%, if not 30% of CFOs have become CEOs. So believe me, ladies and gentlemen here, all of you can take a shot at it. Now, very quickly, 4 more questions, but keep your question brief and to whom you want to ask the question.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I can start. Hello Ravi, I am Raghavendra from Schneider Electric Global Supply Chain. I think we are one of the customer for you. So my question is, in your CEO journey, many times you would have faced a situation where you will have a popular choice or the popular decision versus the right decision. So in those cases, how you will take any example, if you can give, it will be helpful for us.
I follow my intuition, my stomach feeling.
Okay, thank you.
But even then, I would say one thing, the CFO, and I'm sure Raghavendra, you're a seasoned professional yourself, and I have a lot of respect for you. I'm sure that at that point in time, the CFO needs to have that candid conversation and understand the rationale behind it.
Take
if
the
I may
right
say
decision,
so,
yeah.
Ravi. Yep. Yeah, next
Thank
question,
you.
please. I think this gentleman was...
Hi, hi. This is Shivramakrishnan. I head a firm by name Sincere Syndication. Fascinating to hear both of you talk today. Something that came up from Mr. Ravi was the fact that he looks at an ROE of less than 3 years. It's going to be, it's putting the numbers at something like about 25 to 30% CAGR on the ROE, ROC front. Well, I think this applies to quite a lot of companies, but I'm not sure if this applies to every manufacturing enterprise. Given that both of you come from diverse industries, different setups. My question, having heard this from Ravi, I would like to put this to Gopal. If
thanks for that question, but I did clarify. For example, it depends on the business.
Agreed.
Right? So for example, the ROE here, he's looking at it because these could be products which have to be expected to be very efficient, have to be done. In Ashok Leyland, I cannot expect an IRR, or not IRR, an ROE in 3 years.
So what's
time.
a typical ROE, ROC that manufacturing
See, it depends.
should look
I
at
think
today?
we should be thankful if it happens within 5, 6 to 7 years. In the sense, what happens is the product introduction itself takes some time, and then there is a cadence in which it will start growing. Okay, thankfully, unlike cars, our life cycle of our products are pretty long. Cars don't have 10-year life cycles, but a commercial vehicle will typically be about 10 years. So you have seen that some of the designs, not only here, even on the western side, you will see that some of the launches will go over because they mature over a period of time based on the application that is done. Right? So we should not expect this because if the asset turns in this business is only 4 times, as I mentioned.
That's ROE or ROC on the capex, right? But if you're going to be including both the working capital and also the money that is already applied in business, do you think reaching something like about 20% ROC or ROE in business is something
No. If you look at, see, that's what he said.
Running.
He's talking 3 years return. That's why I didn't mention it literally. Our company's ROE, we had gone to about 25% and we have done that. In fact, it has gone up to 40% when you look at ROC. And that is where we intend to be very shortly as well, but that would become a forward-looking statement. But that's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
Keep in mind the interest rates differ for different companies.
Agreed.
Right. So
Fair enough.
and anything above 30% ROC is really what is needed actually.
That's a fabulous number.
The CEO's directive from a CEO.
And I would like to add here that we invest in quite a lot of startups from our enterprise. One of our investee companies is VGOT.
Oh, okay. No, he said he has...
We are investors in VGOT.
He has invested in VGOT. Oh, okay. Wonderful. Any last question?
You can bet on them. Put one more round actually.
We have already done that. We are moving on to the next ones. Got a lot of them out there.
Any last question or should we wind up for the session?
Maybe last.
Okay, one last question. Yeah.
Yeah, I am Paramashivam, a practicing chartered accountant. Their role when statutory auditors have an interaction with the CFO, the CFO role, main role is equity price management. And share price movement has to be watched and it has to be kept in a very comfortable position. When the audit takes place, when the bottom line is going to have a hit, whether that time, I think in your experience, Mr. Gopal, I think I just want to ask you, that type of situation, whether you want to keep the price in the same level or you want to, I think, in the conflict situation where you want to agree with the auditors, then the whatever we have given to the analyst and all, that will have a change in the price, that will have impact on the price. How do you play your role? That's one.
Okay, I'll be very candid. When I joined the company, the stock price of the company was 11 rupees. And today it's at about 145. It had gone up to 167. It came down to 80 rupees. And at no point in time there was price management, because what happens is price management is very short term. You know, you can say that I'll do great and then the stock price may go up a little bit, but you do it 2 times, investors are not, you know, they are very intelligent guys. And let me tell you, those people predict our EBITDAs right to about 100 basis points this way, that way. So if my chairman would ask, what do you think is the EBITDA of the quarter? I said, I'll get some market estimates, that will be the EBITDA for the quarter, because that's what happens. So they are very sharp today. Okay, investors, they get into supply chain, they look at sales, dealers network, they get into competition dealers networks, they know exactly how much shipment is made, how much of steel I have procured. It is not inside information. It is available today. See, information, we must understand. Today, one of the biggest challenges that we have, and that is an opportunity also, is information is available on the tap, right? And it is available so fast that one can't afford to manage. So I personally, as a CFO, I don't have a KRA for managing price. But what I found which helps in, you know, the resilience of the process, if I may use the term, is genuinely transparency. If you are able to tell investors reasonably well in advance that, you know, we are not going to be great performers this year, and make it known to all investors, not to any one particular investor, they actually are not, they understand the situation. Like for example, in FY 2021, we made a loss for the first time in the history of Ashok Leyland. We tried desperately not to make that loss, because it was a matter of pride that this is going to happen. But we didn't withhold the information. And if you see the stock price, it didn't crash. Because we have already told, everybody knows for 6 months in a year, the factories are shut. You can't sell. So if you really look at it, and auditors also today, unless they are convinced, they are not going to agree to anything. So, you know, there are multiple implications. Like I told you, there are multiple agencies. Still, of course, there are questions. Okay, why did this happen? Why did we do this? Why it happens? And there, the quality of the communication that you with investors, the rationale of why you have done a particular thing, actually helps. We lost market share, and I'll close this with this. We lost market share to 18.5% in July last year. Okay, we were a 30% market share company. It came down to 18.5%. So when I got into the analyst call, I didn't say that, you know, this is a blip and next quarter we'll do it. We told them why we got into 18.5% and why it is not a cause of worry. So we deliberated in an investor call for 15 minutes on that. And it didn't impact, because people understood that there's a logic. But what we also said is, these are the plans we are having to get back what we have lost, because that was a plan. We said that no, we are not going to do certain things in COVID, which other players are doing, because that is not good for the dealers, it is not good for the balance sheet of Leyland. When that communication happened, we gained back the share. Today we are at 30% plus, we are going, but the point is, if you are able to be transparent, I'm telling you, not only with investors, with insurers, with bankers, as much as transparency, and with suppliers, with dealers, we find that as much of transparency we have with your own employees, we find that the level of confidence that you can build is humongous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patient hearing. I think okay, the final one, because okay, yeah, go ahead.
Hi sir, I'm Shaunak Chakravarti. I'm from Happy. We are a fintech company. So as you both have agreed, and this is the forum where we can
Thank you for sponsoring the event. Yes, please go ahead.
So as this is the one forum where I can see a CFO and CEO sitting together. So just I'm a sales perspective I'm asking that, as both of you have agreed that digital implementation is being very crucial and very aggressive nowadays. So how you see when a fintech company giving a transparency, so how you want to implement it to your company, and how you want to, as a CFO, how you want to approach it to your CEO on that note?
So I will do 2 things. I'll give a quick answer, and I would want Mr. Ravi to have the final word on that. This is his session. I think, see, I'll tell you one thing. What I would want any fintech to do is, transparency is one, efficiency. Efficiency brings in everything else. transparency, speed, control, right, and productivity. So if suppose we are able to get something, if a digital solution were to give all of this, I think we should go ahead with that and ensure that we adopt it. Transparency is only one part of it. I think there's a lot more things that we have to look at when we adopt any solution for that matter. Ravi, final words.
Well, I think we eat, drink, live digital. Every day in the shop floor, every day in our production lines, quality measurements, everything is digital. I don't think you can escape that because it clearly gives you transparency, but more important is everybody needs to be aligned on the same information, which was not the case when digital was not existing. Digital gives you a very strong alignment in the organization. Everybody sees the same thing. That's more powerful than transparency as a CEO.
Thank you for that, and wonderful answer as a closing one for this session. Thank you very much for this to the audience. Ravi, thank you very much. I did make some notes, not only for asking questions, because some of the questions were some of them were very insightful. I'm carrying it back with me. Thank you very much again, and wish you all I think we are adjourning for lunch, right? And we'll be back soon. Thank you.